Your knees creak when you stand up. You get winded walking up one flight of stairs. Your back feels stiff before noon. And yet there's that one coworker, same age as you, who moves like they're a decade younger, quick on their feet, sharp, energized. So what do they know that you don't? Is it genetics, luck, or something else? Here's the mystery. Your body doesn't actually track your birthday. It's constantly reading signals, how you move, how much light you get, how you carry yourself, and it recalibrates its output based on those cues, not the calendar. So what really happens when you start treating your body like it's younger than it is? Same number of years lived, same calendar, and yet two completely different physical outcomes. That gap is not random, it is not simply luck of the draw, and it is not fully explained by genetics either. Something else is deciding how each of you shows up physically, day to day. Something quieter than age, and far more responsive than most people assume. There is a hidden system running underneath all of this, one that listens far more closely than it counts. And once you understand what it is actually listening for, the question stops being how old you are and becomes something far more useful. Here is the part most people never get told. Your cells do not know your birthday. They cannot see a calendar. They only know the signals you send them, over and over, day after day. And those signals get read, interpreted, and acted on like instructions. Miru, take your grip. The strength in your hand when you carry groceries, twist open a jar, or hang from a bar for 10 seconds. That grip is not just a party trick for measuring fitness, it is a live readout of how much load your muscles are handling regularly. When you consistently ask your muscles to do real work, your body interprets that as a request to preserve lean tissue. When you stop asking, it reads that as permission to let it go. Muscle is expensive to maintain, biologically speaking. Your body does not keep resources it thinks are unnecessary. So every time you carry something heavier than a phone, you are technically sending an instruction upstream, and that instruction is being followed. Miru, light works even faster than muscle, and in some ways more precisely. Somewhere behind your eyes sits a small cluster of cells whose entire job is to notice brightness, especially in the blue-white range that mimics morning sky. When that light hits your eyes within the first hour or two of waking, it sends a signal to your internal clock that says, essentially, the day has started, now is now. That signal helps set your cortisol curve, the rise and fall of your main alertness hormone across the day. In younger, well-regulated systems, cortisol spikes early and tapers smoothly. Miss that light window consistently, stay indoors, wake up and look at a dim ceiling or a screen instead, and the curve gets muddier. The signal arrives late or weak, and your system responds by running its rhythm closer to a much older, less defined pattern. Then there is movement frequency, which is a completely different signal than exercise. You can work out for 45 minutes and still send your body a mostly still signal if you spend the other 15 hours sitting. Joints and bone do not just respond to intensity, they respond to frequency of load. A joint that gets stood on, walked on, and shifted every 30 to 45 minutes is getting a repeated message. This body is still mobile. Keep producing the fluid and structural support mobility requires. A joint that sits still for 3 or 4 hours straight gets a different message. Mobility may not be needed right now, so upkeep can slow down. That is one reason stiffness before noon is not really a mystery. It is often just an accurate readout of hours of stillness, not an inevitable feature of your age. Now, why does the body even work this way? Why is it built to constantly listen instead of simply running on a fixed program? The likely answer traces back to how unpredictable physical life used to be. For most of human history, physical demand was not scheduled. Terrain changed, food sources moved, environments shifted. A body that rigidly aged on a fixed timetable, regardless of circumstances, would have been at a serious disadvantage. A body that stayed responsive, that could ramp capacity up when demands increased and conserve when they didn't, was far more adaptable. That responsiveness did not disappear once life became more sedentary and predictable. The mechanism is still running. It is just now reading a very different set of daily signals than it evolved to expect. This same responsiveness shows up in the brain, not just the muscles and joints. Novel tasks, unfamiliar environments, learning something with an actual unknown outcome. These all trigger neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to build and strengthen new connections. A brain doing the same 5 moves on autopilot every day is not being asked to adapt. A brain encountering something genuinely new is, and it responds by staying more flexible, similar to patterns seen in younger, more cognitively stimulated brains. Posture is another quiet signal, and it works in a direction most people do not expect. It is not just that stiff joints cause a hunched posture. Confident, upright movement patterns appear to influence hormone and mood responses on their own. How you physically carry yourself through an ordinary hallway or up a set of stairs is a message, and your nervous system appears to be listening to it, adjusting its output slightly in response. Even your social environment counts as a cue. Regular interaction, especially the light, low-pressure kind, has been linked to lower inflammatory markers, the same markers associated with accelerated aging. Isolation reads as a kind of signal too, just one pointing in the opposite direction. The clearest demonstration that all of this is real, and not just a comforting theory, came from an experiment often called the Counterclockwise Study. Researchers placed older adults into an environment deliberately styled to match an earlier decade of their lives. Older music, older references, older decor, everything cueing an earlier era. After just several days in that environment, measurable markers shifted, vision improved, hearing improved, blood pressure moved in a healthier direction. Nothing about their biological history changed. Their environment changed, and their bodies responded to the new cues almost immediately. So think back to that coworker, the one who moves like they are a decade younger. Here is what is probably actually happening with them, mechanically. They are not winning some genetic lottery you missed out on. Their mitochondria, their hormones, their immune signaling, all of it is running on the same basic responsive system yours is. The difference is which cues that system has been fed, day after day, for years. Morning light most days instead of dim rooms. Regular movement instead of long, unbroken stretches of sitting. That system does not need one dramatic overhaul to shift its output. It needs consistency. Small, repeated signals, stacked over time, are what move a baseline, not a single heroic effort. That also means you do not need to redesign your whole life to test whether this is real for you. You need one ordinary day. Pick a day this week, nothing special, and do two specific things. First, get outside, actual daylight, actual sky, within about an hour of waking. Not through a window, not through a windshield. Actually outside if you can manage it, even for 10 minutes. Second, break up stillness. Every 30 to 45 minutes, stand up, walk somewhere, shift position. Give your joints a reason to expect movement again soon. That is the whole test. Two signals, one day. Here is the part worth sitting with for a second. That stiffness before noon, that winded feeling on the stairs. None of that was ever proof that your body was breaking down on schedule. It was your body accurately reporting the cues it had actually been given. Long stillness, low light exposure, minimal load. It read those inputs correctly and adjusted accordingly. That is not malfunction. That is the system doing exactly its job. Which means the next time you feel that stiffness, the more useful question is not what is wrong with me, it is what did I actually send my body recently? Read for Arduer. Now, be honest with yourself about the timeline here. One day of morning light and movement breaks is not going to transform you. Nobody is promising that, and anyone who does is not being straight with you. What repeated cues over days and weeks tend to do is nudge things like your cortisol curve and your joint mobility gradually, not instantly. So the fair experiment is not did I feel 20 years younger by dinner? It is something much smaller and much more honest. By evening on your test day, check two things. How alert do you feel compared to a normal day? And does your back or your knees feel any different than they usually do at this hour? That is it. You are not looking for a transformation. You are looking for a data point, and that data point matters more than it seems because it tells you something about your own responsiveness right now at your current age. It tells you whether this signal reading system is actually listening in your case. Most of the time it is. So here is where this actually leaves you. Your body is not counting your birthdays. It never really was. It is reading your behavior constantly, quietly, and adjusting its output based on what you hand it. Which means the real question was never how old you are. It is which signal you handed your body today. Morning light, or another dim room, a walk to the stairs, or another hour glued to the chair. None of these single choices will rewrite your biology overnight, but each one is a vote, cast toward one version of you or the other. And tomorrow, you get to vote again.